Hello, this is the Penderwicks in Spring, Chapter 8, Duets. Usually on school days, Batty woke up to her alarm clock playing Chain Gang. This Monday, she woke when something touched the tip of her nose. At first, she sleepily brushed whatever it was away, half remembering when Hound used to snuffle her awake. But the nose touching kept happening until Batty had to open her eyes and deal with it. Her room was still dark. The sun wasn't up yet, and there was just enough light to see a small finger coming at her again, and behind the finger brown eyes, lots of red hair, and a princess crown. "Lydia is hungry," said the nose toucher. Batty turned on her bedside lamp, trying to grasp the situation. The clock said it was only 6:15, 15 minutes before the alarm would go off. "Did you climb out of your crib?" "Oui." Lydia did an interpretive dance of her breakout, which ended with her standing on her feet, thank goodness, rather than on her head. Then she repeated her message. "Lydia is hungry." So the expected had happened. Lydia had figured out how to escape the crib. Good thing the big girl bed was arriving soon, and now Batty was stuck with Lydia. Yawning, she got them both downstairs, provided Lydia with a banana and a sippy cup of milk, and parked her in the living room near the piano. "I'm going to practice now, and you're going to stay in here and not get into trouble. You can dance if you want, okay?" Lydia nodded happily, her mouth full of banana, and Batty went to her piano and began with the Hannon exercises Mr. Trice insisted upon for warming up. Batty didn't find them boring, though. Indeed, she lost herself in the pleasure of feeling her fingers fly, gaining always in strength, flexibility, and accuracy. Lost, that is, until she heard Lydia crying, "Ben! Ben!" and then the slam of the front door. Panicked, Batty leapt off the piano bench. Had Lydia made it out the front door? No. There she was at the window, still calling for Ben. Because he had escaped, was racing through the dawn in his pajamas to the Geigers' house. Now what? Couldn't a girl have a peaceful morning for practicing the piano? Batty picked up Lydia and flew out of the house in pursuit of her little brother, in her bare feet, across the chilly, dew-drenched grass. By the time she caught up with Ben, cursing her fate as the eldest of the youngest Penderwicks, he was around back of the Geigers' house, peeking into their kitchen window. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "I want to know if Nick is home yet." "He can't possibly be. It's much too soon." "You don't know that." "His truck isn't here, is it?" "Oh, no. Nick's blue pickup truck with the Red Sox decal wasn't in the driveway." Pressing her advantage, Batty used Lydia as a battering ram to push Ben away from the window. It was too late. Mr. Geigers' voice drifted out to them. "Connie, I believe we're being staked out for a robbery. We really should have bought that alarm system." Ben whispered to Batty, "I told you to put home security on the PWTW list." "He means us, you numbskull." She called in through the window. "It's not robbers, Mr. Geiger. Just Batty, Ben, and Lydia." "Never mind, Connie," they heard him say. "Just those annoying kids from across the street." Mrs. Geiger was already opening the back door and inviting them in. She even understood without being told what they were doing there. "Nick's not here yet, but isn't it wonderful about him coming home?" She was almost hopping up and down with excitement. "He's leaving Kentucky this morning to drive to Delaware for a quick visit with Tommy at college, and after that he'll drive up here and arrive tomorrow night, sometime after 11. "Tomorrow," Ben said, and he actually did hop. "Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow." "Tomorrow night," warned Batty. "You might be asleep and not see him until after school on Wednesday." "Tomorrow night, tomorrow night, tomorrow night." Ben hopped into Mr. Geiger, almost making him spill his coffee. "Connie, get these kids out of here," he said, handing a blueberry muffin to Ben. "Lydia is hungry," said Lydia, so Mr. Geiger gave her some muffin too. Mrs. Geiger went on, "And he's going to stay for almost 3 weeks. 3 weeks before he has to go back to that awful war. A good long visit." 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks, said Ben. Batty tried to grab Ben as he hopped by, but now Mr. Geiger was hopping too, so she gave up and put down Lydia, who also started hopping. The phone rang. Mrs. Geiger answered it. "Yes, Iantha, they're here. I'll send them right home." She laughed. "No, Bill, and I like it. You know we do." "We'll go back now," said Batty, as soon as Mrs. Geiger hung up. "Ben, stop bouncing around." "But we are dancing with joy," said Mr. Geiger, putting on a glum face. "Batty, dear, before you go, I spoke with the Avasians last night," said Mrs. Geiger. "They told me how sweet and kind you were to Duchess, and how good it will be for the little dog. They were so pleased." "I wasn't that sweet and kind." Batty had been careful, but not the rest of it. She remembered a few unkind words while getting Duchess into the stroller. "They thought so, and if you still have time, I'd like to hire you too." "Wow, really?" This was wonderful news. Batty was 100% certain there were no dogs secretly living behind any of the Geigers' armchairs. "What do you need doing? Dusting?" "Dusting?" said Mr. Geiger. "I do the dusting, thank you very much." "Shh, Bill," said Mrs. Geiger. "No, I'm opening up a new flower bed in the backyard, and I could use help with digging up rocks." "That's me!" cried Ben. "I'm the digger of rocks." With Ben accelerating from a dance of joy into an extravaganza of ecstasy, or production of joyful excitement, it took Batty another few minutes to get her siblings back outside and across the street. The sun was up by now, another gorgeous spring day beginning. She passed Ben and Lydia off to Iantha, who fussed over their bare and bedewed, or wet, feet, then sat them down for breakfast. She wanted Batty to eat too, but Batty excused herself for a few moments, slipping down to the basement instead. It hadn't occurred to her that the Avasians might have thought her sweet and kind, but now that they did, well, she went back to the pile of bikes and sleds, and this time tugged the little red wagon all the way out from under the pool. Yes, it was as she'd thought, just the right size for Duchess, and much lower to the ground than Lydia's stroller. And it wasn't in bad shape, just dusty with several scrapes in the paint. Batty picked up the handle and pulled the wagon a few feet, the clatter of the wheels bringing back such memories. If only she could be sure that Hound wouldn't mind. She had all day to think about it. That afternoon, Batty carried the red wagon up from the basement, scrubbed it until it shined, found an old blanket to make it a more comfortable ride, filled a bottle of water for Duchess, and dragged it down Gardam Street. Mrs. Avasian opened their front door with a big smile. Alongside her was Duchess, her tail wagging with pleasure. "She's ready for you," said Mrs. Avasian. "We told her you were coming, and she's been sitting by the door waiting." Mr. Avasian came up behind his wife, "And we told her it was time to make it outside on her own." "You told her that, Harvey?" said Mrs. Avasian. "Humph." Batty softly whistled and held out her hand. With a great heave and greater determination, Duchess rose up, made her way through the doorway and down the step, with only a minor amount of stomach scraping, and over to Batty. "Well, here we go," said Batty, picking up the leash. "Goodbye, goodbye," said the Avasians. Like on the day before, they moved slowly, maybe even more slowly, since Batty wanted to conserve the dog's energy, getting her as far up Gardam Street as possible before resorting to the wagon. She should also try getting to know Duchess a little better, since they were going to be spending time together. But how to begin? Conversation with Hound had always flowed so naturally. "I guess I could tell you about school today," she said. "Ginevra turned in 3 more book reports, and Ms. Rowe just about fainted with happiness. Also, Vasidov finally remembered to turn in all of his, so now I'm the only one with no stars. I guess I really do need to write a book report one of these days." Duchess had no reply, being too consumed with forward motion to think about book reports. "I passed the test on clouds, so that was good." Then at recess, Mel and Abby demonstrated how to tango. Kiko wants to learn, just in case she ever gets a crush on a boy who can tango, though who that could possibly be, I don't know. Certainly not Henry or Vasudev. Maybe Eric, the 6th grader, knows how to tango. They'd now reached the Penderwicks' house. Batty paused in case Duchess needed a break, but the little dog forged on. Tomorrow's Tuesday, which means Mrs. Grunfeld will be at school. I'm going to go in early to talk to her about singing lessons. Kiko says I should just ask Mrs. Grunfeld to teach me, but that seems awfully bold, so I think I'll show her the $20 I'll get from Mr. Avasian and ask her if it's enough. And then I hope she'll say, $20 a week is just right, and I will be your singing teacher. No need for you to meet someone new who might make you belt. Then I'll say, Oops! Duchess, are you all right? The dog had stumbled, but not until they were well past the Penderwicks' house, and the next house, too. Batty gave her some water and sat down on the curb for a few moments of rest. A warm breeze was blowing, and in the sky, fluffy clouds, cumulus, formed and reformed into fantastic shapes, a celestial or sky zoo of imaginary animals. Batty thought about songs that had animals in them. Teddy Bear's Picnic was a good one. She started to sing, then stopped abruptly, almost certain that Duchess was trying to sing along with her. What are you doing? Duchess thumped her skinny tail. All right, I'll try again, said Batty, and did. Good grief, you are singing along. It wasn't exactly singing, more like a soft, happy whining, but Duchess was clearly proud of her attempt. Her brown eyes were bright, and her tail was now going like crazy. Batty pondered this new development. Hound had always been happy to listen when Batty sang or talked, or whistled, or anything, but he didn't try to chime in. Batty leaned over to talk, face to pointy face. Let's try the key of C. Duchess gave her an exuberant dog kiss, but Batty pulled away, unwilling to be too easily charmed, and began the labor of loading dog into wagon. It turned out to be much easier than the stroller. With the wagon tipped just so, Duchess could roll on. Then, with Batty leaning heavily on the opposite side, the wagon righted itself, now full of dog. It was a minor triumph for both girl and beast, which they celebrated with a few bars of "Run the world, girls." When they'd gone around the cul-de-sac and back down Gardam Street, they found Mr. Avasian outside, waiting for them. She walked a little further today, said Batty, tipping Duchess out of the wagon, and she's still alive. Of course she's still alive, he answered, and handed over a $20 bill. We'll see you tomorrow then, won't we, Duchess? Duchess yapped cheerfully, and Batty set off home with the money she'd earned, her first solid step toward those all-important voice lessons. She was on her way to her bedroom to stow the money in an envelope she'd already prepared with PWTW written on it in large red letters when a song exploded out of nowhere. It was that wretched Sprite again, bursting out with Dolly Parton's 9 to 5. Batty dove through the nearest door, which happened to take her into Rosalind's room, fell onto the bed and stuffed her face into the pillow. Batty was getting used to her Sprite, and had decided that it looked Tinkerbellish, all sparkly and too pleased with itself. She'd gained little control over it, however. That day, at recess, during a game of dodgeball, she just barely managed to stop herself from singing after hitting Henry with the ball. True, it was the first time in her life she'd handled a ball that well, but that was no excuse for trying to sing. We are the champions in front of the entire 5th grade. Stop, 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 she pleaded with the Sprite, still working on 9 to 5. Humming is okay, but humming only, please, and a calmer song would be better. The Sprite cycled willfully through several more songs before settling on a Mozart sonata, or solo, calm enough to let Batty get out off the bed and wander around Rosalind's room while she hummed, though she just couldn't help doing dance steps as she went. When Rosalind left for college, she'd bravely offered to give her room away to whoever needed it the most, but the family had voted to keep it as hers, at least for the first year. Batty was glad they had, glad she could come here to visit. The matching striped bedspreads and curtains, the tidy desk and bookshelf, the bulletin boards full of snapshots, all were redolent or suggestive of Rosalind, as though she could appear at any moment. Only 19 more days. One bulletin board had been taken down and put in a corner facing the wall. Batty turned it around to look, though she knew what she'd find. Here were photos of Tommy from over the years, starting long ago, when he was still just the goofy kid across the street. Here he was jumping into a kiddie pool with Skye, and here he was, so little he needed 2 hands to hold his football, and here going down a sliding board, and here in his costume for the 6th grade play. As the photos went on in years, they slowly introduced romance. First, Tommy was shoving Rosalind, then holding her hand, then putting his arm around her, then they were all dressed up and ready for prom. Batty turned the bulletin board back to the wall. At least Rosalind still had it. That gave Batty hope for their getting back together. Batty drifted over to look at the framed photo on the bedside table. It held pride of place there for as long as Batty could remember, and had only been left behind because Rosalind had taken a smaller version along with her to college, not wanting to subject the big one to the rough and tumble life of a college dorm. The photo showed Rosalind as a very tiny baby being held by her mother, Batty's mother, too, that is. Rosalind looked like most babies, all fat cheeks and no hair, but their mother, how pretty she'd been, so young and happy. Here's where Skye had gotten her blonde hair and blue eyes, the only sister to have them. All Batty's life she'd heard about how much Skye looked like their mother, and it had been true, but as Skye grew older, it had gotten even more true, until the similarity, at least to this one photo, was startling. If Batty squinted a little, she could almost believe that she was seeing Skye holding a baby. "Of course, I have our mother's name," she told the sort of Skye in the photo, because Batty was just a nickname. Her real name was Elizabeth Penderwicks, just like her mother's. Batty thought it an excellent name for a professional singer. And that is the end of Chapter 8.